tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Mike Emert was a top-selling realtor. His newest client was anxious to see an upscale suburban home. Mike had no inkling that the man was a killer or that he had inadvertently scouted the site for his own murder. Gwen Krewson has relentlessly searched for her adult daughter Holly for more than 7 years. But now, 2 recent events have renewed Gwen's hopes. Could a cryptic telephone call and a psychic's vision hold the answer to Holly Krewson's whereabouts? A young girl vividly recalls a near-fatal car crash that happened 17 years before she was born. Now her family is convinced that she is a reincarnation of her great-grandmother. Las Vegas, Nevada, a neon playground for the rich, the famous, and the not-so-famous. But the place known as Sin City is also the home to one of the most senseless of all crimes, the murder of a helpless infant. These are the suspects, and authorities need your help to track them down. A 21-year-old Louisiana college student disappeared after a night of partying in Shreveport. Now the man who said he saw her last has been charged with a crime. We'll bring you an update. Mysteries can be solved in many ways. Recognizing a face, remembering the color of a car, or even recalling the sound of a voice. Join us. Perhaps you can help solve a mystery. Mike and Mary Beth Emert of Redmond, Washington had it all. They were inseparable soulmates. They were also prosperous partners in the competitive world of Seattle area real estate. Few couples shared a bond so intimate.
The Realtor of the Year award goes to Windermere's top salesman and my husband, Mike Emert.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike and I had a terrific relationship. We were not only husband and wife, but each other's best friends. And we were always on the phone with each other. He was either calling me in her office or calling me on the cell phone or something. We just enjoyed each other's company. We were just very close.
On January 4th, 2001, their dream life together would be shattered.
From the office.
Mary Beth received a heartbreaking call from her mother. Mike had been murdered.
What? What are you talking? Are you sure it was Mike? Is this some kind of a mistake?
The realization that he was gone started to sink in still while I was on the telephone with my mom, but still hoping that, you know, maybe he was alive and maybe they were wrong, you know, maybe it wasn't Mike, and I think it was just shock and disbelief.
Mike Emert's murder was as mysterious as it was shocking. It appeared to be carefully planned and meticulously executed. But why would anyone plot to kill an unassuming realtor with an exemplary past? Mike's killer left behind few clues, but enough to make investigators believe he may have used a most unusual weapon. Perhaps you can help solve this perplexing crime.
Hey, Mary Beth, honey, how are you?
Hi, honey. Just going over some paperwork.
What are you doing?
On the day he was murdered, Mike wrote in his date book that he was to meet a prospective home buyer named Stephen. He told Mary Beth that he had shown Stephen houses the previous day. According to Mary Beth, Mike said he planned to meet Stephen at 11:30 at a local mall. He told her that Stephen was in his 50s, limped and carried a cane. He added that Stephen was relocating from Northern California and that he spoke with an East Coast accent.
First, I'm gonna check out that one you saw that you liked so much yesterday. So why don't you hop in and we'll get going. All right.
Stephen was keenly interested in looking at one home in the affluent suburb of Woodinville. It was a house Mike had shown him the previous day. The house was on a large private lot, distanced from other homes in the neighborhood.
Here we go. Well, you were here yesterday, so just, help yourself. If you need anything, I'll be upstairs.
Hi, Betty. It's Gail. I'm gonna stop by my house and grab something to eat, and I should be back at the
At 12:30 p.m., the owner of the house, Gail Garland, returned from her job to spend her lunch hour at home. She entered through the garage and was alarmed to find the front door ajar. Just as disturbing was the sound of water running upstairs. A trail of blood, still wet, led toward the bathroom. Mike Emert was dead. Only minutes earlier, he had been stabbed 19 times.
The murder took place in this room, and once the victim was incapacitated, he was obviously dragged down the hallway into the bathroom, where he was placed.
Investigators surmised that Stephen, the prospective home buyer, had committed the brutal murder. They also believed he may have killed Mike in this house, precisely because it was isolated from most other homes in the neighborhood.
It appears that he may have reconnoitered and actually singled out this home as the best place to assault Mike. Now, that suggests some sophisticated criminal thinking going on.
If the mysterious Stephen had methodically planned Mike's murder, it was also possible that his handicap was merely a ruse. Investigators believe this would explain how a man in need of a cane was able to overpower Mike.
I think it's possible that the weapon was this cane, and I'm not beyond believing that the cane might have been one of these sword canes or a cane with a knife in it. So maybe the initial blitz assault to stun Mike was striking Mike with a cane from behind. But the knife portion of the cane was used to kill Mike. Mike was nearly 6 feet tall, weighed 187 pounds. I think we have an offender here that was able to overcome a man of Mike's stature and then drag his body perhaps about 18 feet from one room to where he came to rest. The water in the shower was turned on, and the two faucets in the vanity sinks were found running. That, to me, speaks of an attempt to get rid of any trace evidence. Hair, fibers, things like that are being washed down the drain. He's cleaning his hands off in the sink, cleaning the weapon off in the sink. This was probably not this individual's first murder, or certainly not his first violent assault.
Mike's expensive watch and diamond ring were not found on his body, but investigators feel certain that robbery was not the killer's motive. They also strongly suspect that the meticulously executed murder could have been the work of a professional hitman. But who would have hired the mysterious Stephen to kill Mike Emert?
Did he mention anything about a description of this man or any characteristics you might be able to tell me?
Investigators explored the possibility that Mike's wife, Mary Beth, may have been involved.
East Coast accent.
But they eliminated her as a suspect.
He walked with a limp.
They also wondered if any rival realtors may have wanted to have Mike killed. But their investigation eliminated that possibility as well.
Anything else you can tell me that you might remember?
An exhaustive probe of Mike's background revealed that he had never committed a serious indiscretion or made any enemies.
While conducting hundreds of interviews on people, even going back 10 years ago and a prior business that he was involved in, we have not interviewed anybody that can establish why somebody would want to have Mike Emert killed.
I've thought over and over and over again, racked my brain trying to come up with some reason why somebody would want to harm Mike, and there is nothing that I can come up with that would have this make any sense. He was a great friend, he was a great husband. The effects of losing Mike have just left a huge hole in my heart, and it's just so hard to come to grips with.
"31-year-old Holly Krewson lies comatose in a hospital bed, possibly the victim of a car accident. Her location is a mystery. How she got there is also unknown." These are not images from a real situation, but are the images from the mind of a psychic. However, these visions may hold the key to unlocking a mystery that has haunted Holly's mother for 7 years. Holly Krewson disappeared from La Mesa, California during the spring of 1995. Despite her mother Gwen's exhaustive efforts to find her, what happened to Holly, her current whereabouts, remains a mystery. But several recent events, including a psychic's eerie vision and a mysterious phone call, make Gwen believe Holly is alive and that she will see her again. Holly Krewson was born and raised in La Mesa, California. From a very young age, Holly dreamt of one day being discovered and becoming a movie star.
She started into beauty pageants, and she loved the attention and the beautiful dresses. And we kind of put her on a pedestal, you know. And then we started her in dancing when she was 3. And she liked it. She was always real outgoing.
But Holly's seemingly happy young life would soon begin a downward spiral. Holly's mother says when she was 11, Holly was molested by a trusted family friend. And within a few years, her parents divorced.
And then when she got into her middle teens, I think she started hanging around with the wrong crowd and kind of lost interest in the dancing and the pageants and wanted to be grown up.
Eventually, Holly dropped out of school and began working as a waitress.
Who's that guy?
Just one of the customers.
She was living with a man with whom she had an apparently abusive relationship.
No, he was just asking about the different types of...
In fact, he was arrested on several occasions for allegedly assaulting Holly.
I'm getting smart with you. Will you please relax, okay?
Don't tell me to relax. I'm not gonna do it again, I promise, please. I love you.
But each time he would sweet-talk his way back into Holly's life, pulling her away from the security of her mother's home. For weeks at a time, Gwen would only see Holly sporadically. She recalls a particular day in February 1995 when her daughter stopped by her print shop.
Holly! Where are you going?
I'm just gonna go upstairs and grab a few things. I'll be back in a second.
Is everything okay?
Yes.
Gwen Krewson had no way of knowing that it would be the last time she would see her daughter.
Hi, Christy. This is Gwen, Holly's mother. Hi. Have you seen Holly around?
Over the next several weeks, when Gwen tried to contact Holly, she couldn't find her.
If you do run into her, could you have her give me...
And I panicked, and I called all of her friends. They hadn't seen her.
Gwen notified the La Mesa Police Department about Holly's apparent disappearance.
The patrol division took the initial report, and they really didn't do much because to be an adult, it's not a crime to be missing, or it's not really a big problem because there was no suspicious circumstances at the time.
2 years later, with Holly Krewson still unaccounted for, the police took a closer look at her boyfriend's criminal past.
because the boyfriend was arrested at least 3 different times for domestic violence with Holly. Detectives from the Mesa Police Department polygraphed her boyfriend, and it appeared at the time that he had no involvement in her disappearance.
On Holly's 30th birthday, the San Diego media publicized the story of Gwen's determined search for her daughter. The story attracted the attention of a local psychic who said she immediately began receiving images of Holly.
Well, I started to get little flashes, like short little images is how I receive a lot of my psychic information. And my first impression was seeing her in a hospital bed. So I knew right off that I wanted to contact this mother who was obviously missing her daughter something fierce.
And I saw Holly in a hospital bed.
When they met, Joyce told Gwen that Holly had left California to flee an abusive situation.
Car accident. She perhaps was either driving drunk or she was in a car that was being driven by a drunk driver. And she was.
My feeling was that there was a car accident and she was in a somewhat semi-comatose condition. As I sat there, I was starting to feel some other things. I told her, first of all, that I saw Holly in a hospital gown, in an extended care facility.
The name Marymount came to me.
Joyce believed Marymount might be the name of a hospital where Holly had received care. The names of the towns Marysville and Kenwood also came to her, but she was unable to make any further connections. Three months later, Gwen received a phone call that would change her life.
Hello? Holly?
I hear this weak little voice say,
Holly?
"Hi, Mama." And I didn't hear anything. And I said, "Who is this?"
Mom.
And the voice said, "Holly," kind of strained, like she was crying. And I said, "Holly, is that you?"
Are you still there, Holly?
Gwen had a tape recorder handy and was able to record a portion of the telephone call.
"Holly, I love you. Talk to me. This is your mom." "Holly? Talk to me. I love you. I want to find you. I want to help you. Where are you?" "I don't know." "Huh? Are you in San Diego?" "Ohio." "Ohio? Where in Ohio?" "Holly, I love you. Hey." And then pretty soon it disconnected. But I know it was her. I mean, mothers know these things.
With a new possibility that Holly was in Ohio, Gwen Krewson tackled the information the psychic had provided.
I got my atlas out and I found Marysville. There's a Marysville there. There's a Marymount Hospital, and it's right on the map.
Yes, hello. I am looking for my daughter. Her name is Holly Krewson.
However, when Gwen contacted the hospital and nearby police departments, she ran into roadblocks she had met before. Because Holly was over 21, even if she'd been treated in the area, her records could not be released. But there would be one more intriguing new lead that could prove instrumental in finding Holly. Recently, while trying to locate Holly's old boyfriend, Detective Vincent Brown uncovered new information. The owner of the Pines Anita campground, 50 miles east of La Mesa, vividly recalls seeing Holly there in 1995, a few months after she was believed to have disappeared.
Holly Krewson, her boyfriend, and one other person, last name of Humby, were up at a campground in Julian, California. Throughout the weekend, Holly's boyfriend was creating trouble, drinking too much, it sounded like, just creating a general disturbance.
You guys are taking off. What are you talking about, loaded up?
When they were finally asked to leave, as they left the campground, the boyfriend pointed a gun at the owner and threatened to come back and shoot him because they were being kicked out of the park.
Police are interested in speaking with a man accompanying Holly and her boyfriend, who went by the name of Humby. In 1995, he was believed to be in his early to mid-20s.
This individual may have information regarding Holly's disappearance or what really happened to her.
Gwen has been revitalized by the new leads that have surfaced, but she continues to be haunted by unanswered questions. Where was Holly when she made the mysterious phone call? And what could be preventing her from calling back now? Gwen will not rest until she finds Holly or learns her fate.
If I gave up hope, you know, whoever took her or killed her or is holding her captive or whatever the case may be, they've won. And they're not going to win. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to keep looking for my daughter.
In the fall of 1977, when CeCe Klepper was a young mother of 26, she experienced an amazing event that would change her life forever.
Mommy, stop, what's wrong?
While driving to a friend's home, her daughter Dee suddenly became extremely agitated.
Dee started crying uncontrollably. I went through the intersection, I pulled over to see what was wrong, and I said, what is it? And she goes, oh, Mommy, you have to be so careful here. This is such a dangerous place. People get really hurt here. And I was just flabbergasted. I don't know why she could be so upset.
Later that day, CeCe told a relative about the incident. She was astounded to learn that her grandmother, Ocelia, was nearly killed at the exact same intersection 17 years earlier. Incredibly, Dee seemed to be remembering that accident. But how was that possible? Ocelia died 7 years before Dee was born. CeCe Klepper is convinced that her daughter Dee is a reincarnation of her grandmother Ocelia. But is this simply wishful thinking, or is it really possible for the dead to come back to life? A landmark study of reincarnation is currently underway at the University of Virginia, where researchers are raising controversial questions about what really happens to us when we die. And the most astonishing cases involve young children who seem to have the memories of long-departed relatives. Ocelia Davidson was born on May 4, 1893, and passed away 73 years later in 1966. Dee Klepper was born on December 19, 1973. At first, she appeared to be a perfectly ordinary child. But soon Dee began acting as if she was, in fact, her great-grandmother Ocelia. The first extraordinary occurrence happened during a trip to the grocery store.
We were in the grocery store, and there was an older woman who came over.
Mommy, there's my old friend.
And Dee said, Mommy, this is my friend.
Thank you, hello.
In fact, the woman was a friend, but not of Dee's. CeCe discovered that the woman had been a neighbor of Ocelia's for 30 years. Before that day, Dee had never set eyes on her and had no way of knowing who she was. 2 months later, Dee made a second mysterious statement about her great-grandmother's past life while at a restaurant.
We walk into the restaurant, and she goes, Mommy, there's Helen. And this older waitress comes over.
How did you know my name?
And before I could say anything, my daughter piped up and said, because I used to come here when I was big. And this waitress, I cannot describe the look on her face or how. She was really flustered.
Dee had never been to the restaurant before, but her great-grandmother Ocelia was a regular.
I asked this waitress how long she had worked there, and she said she had been a waitress there for about 20 years. So she definitely would have been there at a time when my grandmother came. And since my grandmother went on a weekly basis, it's quite likely my grandmother did know her pretty well. This seemed pretty strange that my daughter seemed to have memories from my grandmother's life. And to me, Reincarnation was really the only thing that could explain that.
In the typical case, a child at a young age, 2 or 3, describes having lived before and will continue to talk about this until he or she gets to be 7 or 8. The child may give enough statements about the previous life that a person who died that matches that description can then be found.
CeCe's case is not unique. I have other cases like hers, and they all seem to fit the same general patterns. The age of the child and how the relatives come to realize that this is a reincarnated relative.
On December 3rd, 1995, Ron Ortega and his wife welcomed into the world a baby boy they named Gus. The family had no prior belief in reincarnation. Then Gus began to speak, and Ron's entire view of reality was abruptly thrown into question.
I was changing his diaper when he was about 1.5, and he abruptly just said, "You know, when I was your age, I used to change your diapers." And that kind of threw me for a loop. I kind of stopped to look back, and I said, well, what a weird thing to say.
As Gus grew older, he continued to make puzzling references, often talking as if he were an adult. One day when Ron showed Gus some old family photos, his son's reaction was mind-boggling.
Is that so hard?
One of the photos was a class photo of my father when he was about 10, with about maybe 15 or 20 other kids.
That's me.
Gus was pointing to his grandfather, August Ortega, a man he had never seen before in his life. August died 1 year before Gus was born, and the child had never seen a picture of him. Now Gus was picking August out in photo after photo and declaring that he was August in a previous life.
He was shown a picture of my family's business, and when asked what this was, he said, "That's my shop." He said, "I used to be big, and now I'm a kid again." And he was giggling when he was saying this. I mean, it was just like, isn't this great? This is absolutely cool.
If that wasn't strange enough, Gus soon began talking about a tragic event in the Ortega family's past. The incident occurred 55 years before Gus was born, and Ron claims his son knew absolutely nothing about it.
He said, "I had a sister, and she died. She's a fish, and bad guy made her die."
August Ortega's sister was murdered by her husband in 1940. Her body was wrapped in a blanket and dumped into the San Francisco Bay.
That was absolutely the aha moment. That blew me away because there was no way at all that this kid could have known anything about that.
Today, Gus is 5 years old, and his memories of his grandfather August are slowly fading away. Experts have discovered that most children who remember past lives usually lose those memories by the age of 7.
If Gus starts to lose these memories, I'll feel fortunate to have spent this early time with him. He's very affectionate, and that's something that I think my father always wanted to be able to do, but couldn't as much as he wanted to. This is like connecting, and I sense very much that this is a gift that's been given to me, and I'm cherishing it, every moment of it.
Dee Klepper is now 27 years old. She no longer has any memory of her great-grandmother, Ocelia Davidson.
We certainly have not proven reincarnation. In fact, we're not even attempting to. I think what these cases can do is open our minds a little bit where we may not understand everything about how the world works, that there may be more to life than we really know.
Las Vegas, Nevada, a mecca for both high rollers and nickel slot players. However, in a local mall near the Strip, Kevin Wu and his girlfriend Christine Weston were playing their own game by their own rules. Wu and Weston had allegedly devised a daring shoplifting scheme that netted enough cash to feed their drug habits.
You got to be pretty gutsy to walk into a mall and lift merchandise, especially nowadays with all these sensors that are posted at these places.
Their luck eventually ran out. Wu and Weston were arrested and booked for shoplifting. But they were soon back on the streets, and police claim up to their old tricks. Only this time the stakes had gone much higher. Christine was 8.5 months pregnant with Kevin's baby, and they were about to become suspects in a heinous crime. According to police, the couple settled into their room following a day ripping off department stores. They reportedly spent the rest of the evening drinking and using drugs. Sometime after midnight, Weston felt a series of sharp abdominal pains. Moments later, she went into premature labor, locked herself in the bathroom, then gave birth to a baby boy.
What's wrong, honey? Baby, I don't understand. The baby's coming.
Call someone! Oh!
Wu rifled through the yellow pages for the nearest hospital and pleaded his case with an ER nurse.
Emergency room, Lois speaking.
Hello, ma'am. I have an emergency. My girlfriend...
She received a phone call about 1 o'clock in the morning from a male subject who identified himself as Kevin and said that his girlfriend had just had a baby and the baby was in the toilet.
We do not dispatch ambulances from this location. You need to hang up and you need to dial 911 right now.
Wu finally made the call to 911 an hour later, about 2 a.m. He said it was a medical emergency and not to involve the cops. Suspicious, the dispatcher contacted Las Vegas Metro Police anyway.
She's in the bathroom.
When paramedics and uniformed officers arrived, they found Christine alone in the bathroom. Her baby was still in the toilet. While Weston was wheeled to a waiting ambulance, the homicide unit responded. The baby had apparently died of drowning.
I can't describe the feeling that I had when I first saw that, because I've never seen anything like it. The deaths dealing with children are the hardest, but this one, it's just hard to describe. This is a baby that didn't have a chance from the minute it came out.
The death of any child is tragic, and this case is especially shocking. But had a crime been committed? Several scenarios of guilt or innocence were possible. Detectives hoped an autopsy scheduled for later the same day would provide the answers. One question in particular was crucial. Had the baby been born alive? Detectives Hardy and Tremmel were anxious to see the results of the autopsy, but in the meantime, there was work to do. When they arrived at the hospital to talk with the young couple, a uniformed officer was already questioning Kevin Wu. He suddenly became very nervous.
Henderson.
How long you been living there?
Just a couple years. We didn't stay too long. Excuse me, do you mind if I use the restroom?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thanks.
A few minutes later, detectives were told that Wu had fled.
The suspect's gone. He's out of here.
We need an officer stationed at the Lady Luck Hotel.
They immediately ordered a patrol officer to stand guard at the hotel in case he returned to his room. Then around 3 a.m., Hardy and Tremmel spoke with Christine Weston.
We just need to ask you a couple of questions.
She was about as calm as anybody could be for what had just happened. Wasn't upset, wasn't crying. The only question she had about was her belongings in the room. Really couldn't care less about what happened to the baby.
When can I go back to the hotel?
Well, it's a little late to go back tonight, but the room is secure. Your things are all right.
I gave her my business card and said, call us in the morning and we'll make arrangements to meet you over there and get your stuff.
Thank you for calling.
It was partly a ploy to put Weston at ease until detectives could review the results of the autopsy and determine if a crime had been committed. Late that morning, the report came in. The baby had indeed been born alive.
Because they didn't seek medical attention, the district attorney's office felt that there was enough to charge both of them with the murder, basically, of the child.
There was now an alleged homicide to investigate, with Christine Weston and Kevin Wu the two prime suspects. Hardy and Tremmel returned to the hospital to question Weston, But while they were checking in at the nurse's station, she was checking out the back door. Seconds later, Weston was gone.
She really had no fixed address in Las Vegas. We really didn't know where to look for them. They were all, as far as we were concerned, just guests of that hotel.
Then 2 days after Wu and Weston disappeared, police say Wu stole a pickup truck in nearby Henderson, Nevada.
Hey, buddy, I need your car. Just give me the keys.
Oh,
give me your
I need
keys.
the car.
I don't have the time.
Whoa,
Just give me your
here.
keys.
Okay.
It was found abandoned a few days later south of Los Angeles. That brought the FBI into the case.
The FBI got involved in it during what we call the unlawful flight to avoid prosecution process. What that is when an individual is indicted or arrested in a state case and then flees the jurisdiction, we initiate that process to assist in the apprehension.
Weston and Wu were both charged with second-degree murder, child abuse with substantial bodily harm, and possession of a controlled substance. Wu was also wanted for carjacking, but despite the nationwide manhunt, police say the couple has not been deterred from their life of crime.
Christine has been cited twice in the Southern California area. She was arrested by the Costa Mesa Police Department for shoplifting.
Weston, however, is very clever. To derail Costa Mesa police from making an immediate ID, she reportedly used one of her aliases, Carrie Lynn Meeker. Since shoplifting is a misdemeanor, Weston, posing as Meeker, was not held in jail.
Once they're arrested, their fingerprints are sent back to the FBI facility. That can take up to a day to get back, the result of which is, if it's not a significant event, they're released before the return of the fingerprints, which helps them avoid apprehension.
And what about Weston's alleged partner in crime?
There haven't been any sightings of Kevin Wu since his departure, but we still assume that the two of them are together until we learn otherwise.
Christine Weston and Kevin Wu are still on the lam, and Detective Don Tremmel is still on their trail. He won't rest until he tracks them down.
If you saw what we saw in the room that night, it would make you mad too. But the whole thing that really gets to me is that they chose to do nothing and showed no concern, no remorse, and then left town like nothing happened.
A few days after Christine Weston and Kevin Wu allegedly took the life of their child, the Las Vegas chapter of the Knights of Columbus gave baby John Doe a name, Kyle, and a proper burial. But there will be no closure on this case until his parents are arrested and tried for murder. On a previous broadcast, we brought you the story of a beautiful young woman named Wendi Long. Wendi was living with her parents during a semester off from college. On a Sunday afternoon in Coushatta, Louisiana, Carol and Luke Long received a telephone call from a friend of their 21-year-old daughter. They were given news that is every parent's nightmare.
I thought she was with you.
No, I haven't seen her since Friday night.
Wendi was missing.
We called the police and told them that we thought something had happened to Wendi. And that's where it all started. Somebody knows where Wendy's at. And we just want to find her so bad.
Bye, Mom. Bye, sweetie.
2 days before she disappeared, Wendi had left to go to Shreveport for the weekend.
I'll be okay.
On the way, she picked up two friends. They spent the afternoon shopping. Later that day, they picked up an acquaintance, a man we called Tommy in our original broadcast. The foursome went to a party at another friend's house.
And I'm told that Wendy had quite a bit to drink that night. So that when it came time for them to take Tommy back home, she didn't want to drive. In fact, she didn't want to go with them at all. okay to drive?
Fine, I can drive. Don't worry about it. Ruby, I said I could drive, right? Don't worry about it.
Tommy claimed that he was concerned that Wendi would be stranded, so he returned to the party in his own car and offered her a ride home. On the way back, Tommy said he stopped for gas and a quart of oil.
When he came back out, Wendi was talking to two young men in a black Chevy truck.
Hey, Tommy, come here. This is Mike and Zant.
Tommy said that it appeared that she knew them. And Wendi told Tommy at that point not to worry about it, that she was going to go with them and they were going to get her home.
Are you sure you know these guys? I mean,
Yes, I'm sure I know these guys.
According to
I will
Tommy,
get home okay.
the last time he saw Wendi was when she left with the two men. This alleged sighting made Tommy the last person to see Wendi before she disappeared. Later, police questioned Tommy about the events of the evening. He agreed to take a polygraph test, which, according to police, he passed. Tommy even gave a detailed description to the police, but despite thorough investigation, the leads seemed to go nowhere. Update. 5 months after Wendi's disappearance, Tommy, whose real name is Robert Rocky Stewart, was arrested for check fraud.
The investigators started taking another look at Rocky, and I think in just looking at him as a possible suspect instead of a possible witness, they started pointing out inconsistencies in his story.
Tommy, come here. This is Mike.
Authorities came to believe that the story he told them was a complete fabrication.
Get home okay.
When the information continued to turn up false and the story broke down, Mr. Stewart began to break down.
Police say that Rocky Stewart then confessed to murdering Wendi Long.
During one of the subsequent interviews, Mr. Stewart gave investigators the location of the body. Investigators went to that location and found what appeared to be human remains. Those remains ultimately were determined to be the remains of Wendi Long.
Join me for our next edition of Unsolved Mysteries.